So there are several things in this photo that you can appreciate right off the bat. I think this is a very effective photo for the message that I believe the artist is trying to get across. Some elements or the composition elements that you can really appreciate in this photo, I believe the first of all is the color, the use of color. As you can see, the foreground is very vibrant, it's very intense, it's very bright and cheerful, especially with all the yellow that we see. Most people can relate yellow to happiness. So with all the yellow, I believe that that's being used very effectively. And then also you can tell the very bright colored bow in the little girl's hair. Um, all of that is very intense, very vibrant, and this can be contrasted against the very dull and dark, almost dark looking background. The background is filled with what looks like dead trees that are mainly brown or gray, and it's very starkly almost opposite of the foreground with the very lively, beautiful flowers in bloom and the little girl's dress that has flowers on it and the very, very bright pink bow in the little girl's hair. Another thing that I can appreciate with the composition on this photo is the use of space. We can tell that there is space in between the camera and the girl, and then also space in between the girl and the trees in the background. So this gives me a sense of feeling that we're in a very open field, perhaps filled with flowers, something that could be fun for girls or just any little kids to run around and play in. So the use of space, I believe, is being used very effectively here to get a sense of how big the area we are in is. Um, Another one that I think is effectively being used is texture. So you can, because the flowers in the foreground are in focus, we can kind of see a different type of texture on them than we see perhaps in the dress on the little girl or the little girl herself. The texture of the flowers is kind of like almost like grass-like texture that you would see. It would be a little rough if you ran your fingers across it, but the texture of the flowers themselves would be very soft on the petals. And then you can see the texture of the girl's dress, which looks soft, maybe cotton, something easy to run around and play in. However, you can't really appreciate the texture on the trees in the background, which we could probably assume would be very rough from the bark. I believe this is in the background because we don't want to emphasize it too much on this photo, which leads me into my next element that we can appreciate in this photo, which is variety. There's a really big variety in between the foreground and the background with color. I think that if that's the point that the artist is trying to get across, then we can appreciate it. There is a very stark difference in between the vibrant colors in the foreground and the lack thereof in the background. So variety is definitely present. This photo is about obviously the young girl that we see. She's laying in what appears to be a field of maybe flowers, and she has her feet up in the sky, looking off to a distance, seeming like she doesn't have a care in the world, like a lot of kids do. Um, she, I believe that this photo is not only about the young girl, but it's about youthfulness in itself. I think that the flowers portray that, and the big bow in her hair also portrays that. And there's a sense of like wonder and life in her and in the photo with all the bright colors that really gets this message across to the viewers. Some things that I would change. I personally would try and eliminate as much as the background as I could. Um, since it's not in focus and it is such a dull and dark background, I would try and get rid of most of it because it might be taking away from the overall like youthfulness message because it seems to be almost opposite of the flowers in the foreground. So that would be one thing that I would try and change would be the background of the dead trees. And then just some things that could possibly use work. Maybe the cropping. I would maybe try to level the photo so that it doesn't look like the girl and the flowers are running down a hill towards the bottom right corner of the photo. I would try and level it so that it's on a level field, and then cropping, I would try to get more picture on the left hand side to see, is there more flowers on that side, how many more flowers, just to try and get a sense of how big is this field of flowers that we're actually in. It could help portray the message even more if she's in a very big field of flowers that we could see.